How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Home Repairs, and a classic DIY electrical project for most homeowners is just adding additional outlets to a bedroom or a living space to get them exactly where they want them and cut down on any need for extension cords. Today, we're going to take the power we have here at the outlet and extend that to a new location over in the corner by leveraging the access we have to the basement. I did ask the viewers, where would you run the Romex for a new location? And over half of you guys said either the basement or crawl space or up in the attic, which is a very similar process. So let me show you some tips and tricks along the way to save you time and money, but also keep this an electrical project, not a drywall project where you're repairing damaged drywall, and not a painting project where you're painting a wall. So let's jump into it. So let's kick things off by getting a plan of attack. I'll remove the front cover here because I want to get a measurement down to the bottom of that single gang junction box, which is 11.5 inches. Then I use my stud mark magnetic stud finder. This is by far my favorite because it actually has 3 stud finders in one, and I can keep marking each of those studs, moving across the wall to get to the final bay that I want to be in, where I'm going to make a mark at 11.5 inches off the floor for our new location. So now let's go ahead and turn off our power. This is also going to be where we're locating the Romex in the basement or attic to know exactly which wires are feeding the outlet that we want to take power from. And you can either use a simple outlet tester by plugging that into the outlet, seeing that it's still on, and if you have a helping hand, maybe one person is at the breaker panel, one person is watching the 2 LEDs, and then when they flip the breaker that turns the LEDs off, you know which one that is. Now, if your breaker panel is perfectly labeled, well, you are in the minority by far. Most of us have to kind of guess back and forth depending on the labels and how accurate they are. Alternatively, if you're lucky enough to have the ET310 from Klein Tools, it's an outlet tester with your GFCI testing. So it serves that purpose, but it's also a transceiver, which matches up to now this receiver where we can take that down to the panel and we can find exactly which breaker we need to trip without any guesswork. So I'll open up the panel, turn the receiver on, and then work across each breaker. And then this one shows hot, but I'll work past it and then come back just to confirm. And that is the one we're looking for. Turn it off and then check our outlet tester up in the room, seeing the LEDs are off. So now we'll go ahead and remove the outlet with this 15-1 Klein screwdriver. Pretty handy, and I use the #1 square drive opposed to the Phillips. It works a lot better for those type of outlets. Then checking with a non-contact voltage tester, we see no power, so let's go ahead and take off the 2 pieces of Romex. We have one feeding this and one pulling to an outlet downstream. I don't love how those grounds are coming together, how they just kind of twisted them. So we'll show you a better way here when we bring everything together as we add an additional piece of Romex to this box to feed our new location. So once I have that done, I do actually want to remove this box. This is a new work box, so that means it's going to have a nail on the top and nail on the bottom, and I know the studs on the left-hand side because we found that with the magnetic stud finder. So I'll just go ahead and clip those 2 off, but we still have a little interference. And remember, I don't want to make any drywall damage. So I'll go ahead and take the oscillating tool out again, and I'll cut at the top and at the bottom after I get those mounting screws back in so I have something to hold on to. Once we trim that up, it does free up quite a bit. So I think I can now pull the box out of that hole, and you'll see the little plastic holders there for the nails on top and bottom that you need to trim. So we have access now, and we're in the basement. The room is located over here. The wall is right about here. And to be honest, I was a little surprised. Those 2 pieces of Romex were coming from top. I had 2 pieces of Romex running here up into the wall. One of those is actually feeding that outlet. I know that because I tested it before. Both of these were hot. We turned off the circuit, and now this one is no longer hot. So this is the one feeding, but this piece of Romex is actually not coming up into that wall cavity. It's coming up into the one located next to it, and then it must go through that stud and down into the box. And the other piece of Romex is not this one here. This one's hot. This one must be going to the kitchen, which is on this side of the house. But instead, that other piece of Romex is probably going to another outlet somewhere in the room. So you're gonna have to piece together your own story. There's a bunch of different ways people could wire your house, and you don't know how they did that over the years. But now I do have this coax cable here, which is in the correct bay. I have this blocking in the wall, which I'll be able to drill a 3/4 of an inch hole through with this speed bore bit and my 12X extension. So I'll drill that. That will give me access for my new Romex, which will then go through these floor joists all the way over to this last bay over here, which is the location of our new outlet. And I'll show you exactly how to find where that's at. Again, before we even start cutting drywall, to make sure we know exactly where that's going to be. So now for locating the new hole location, we have marked where we want that in the bay. We know there's a stud right here. We have an opening here. 11.5 inches up is where I would want the bottom of this new box. It'll actually be an old work box that will cut into this bay. So all we have to do is take a 1/4 inch long drill bit. And because we have carpet, we can kind of go right down through under the trim, and we're going to drill through the subfloor so this drill pit sticks out in the basement. We're easy able to find that location, so we can drill up through the bottom plate with a 3/4 inch speed bore bit, knowing it's at the right location. So let's go ahead and drill this through. If you have wood floors, I recommend taking off your baseboard and doing the same thing, but hiding that hole underneath the baseboard. Carpet's a lot more forgiving, but you might have to do one more step if you have hardwood. So we found our drill bit coming down. Now I would not want to drill my 3/4 inch hole right at that drill bit because we want to go into the wall cavity. So you have to move over 1/2 inch for drywall and then 1 3/4 inch to get in the middle of that plate because it's 3.5 inches wide as a 2x4 for your bottom plate. So that is where we'll drill, and that's going to give us direct access inside the wall cavity. And then when we cut our new hole, we'll be able to run Romex right up to it. So we'll drill this new location going up through the bottom plate of the wall, and then also drill any of your holes as close to the center as you can through your floor joists to make sure Romex can go from the old location to the new location. Once you have that completed, now let's go ahead and cut our location of the old work box. I'll use a bubble level to make sure everything's leveled up. I'll trace the outline of the box and then complete that outline before using my oscillating tool. Now you could use a jab saw. I'm just using an oscillating tool, but take your time either way to make sure you get accurate cuts and don't create any drywall damage. Once that's completed, you will do a dry fit, just making sure everything fits and no additional adjustments are needed. This looks good. So now it's on to the next step, and that's getting Romex. So I'll take it from the basement, and this is 12-2 Romex, which is matching up with the 12-2 Romex that we have. That means it has 2 conductors and a bare ground wire. We'll feed that up to the old location. I'll go up in the room and then pull out that slack. And then I want to make sure that I have a little bit of slack there and put a staple to hold that. And like any proper electrician, I will use my pliers as a hammer and secure that staple in place, doing something very similar on this new location, going up in the room, pulling out the slack, and then go ahead and mount 1 staple there to secure the wire. So this is what it looks like going from our original location, pulling it over, nothing too fancy, running it between each floor joist, and then now to our new location. So now we'll go ahead and install the old work box and my favorite. This is a commercial grade outlet from Legrand. Eaton, Leviton, Hubble, they're all good brands. I just recommend that you do commercial grade as compared to a standard residential grade, and do not use the backstab features of outlets. These have back wiring features that I will use, but it's much, much better than what's called backstabbing, which actually can only be used with 14 gauge wire instead of the 12 gauge wire that's rated for 20 amps. So go ahead and use commercial grade. And then also you'll see links to all the tools that we use. This is hybrid Knipex wire strippers. Get yourself a good pair of wire strippers if you're actually going to be doing quite a bit of electrical work around the house. These have been awesome and highly, highly recommend. And then Klein Tools has a bunch of these 15-in-1, 14-in-1. There's even a 16-in-1 that I'm checking out, which means you need 1 screwdriver, and this one actually has ratchet action, and you have all your bits. So when you need to flip between Phillips, flathead, or what I prefer, a number 1, number 2 square drive for electrical work, you have it all in 1 screwdriver. You're not searching for a bunch of different screwdrivers. But really for the price, you cannot go wrong with a lot of what Klein Tools puts out there. So we'll go ahead and work the Romex here through the bottom of this old work box and then put it in place, securing the 2 screws. Just make sure the plastic tabs rotate 90 degrees and actually tighten to the back of the drywall, which will securely hold the old work box in place. Then once you have that, we'll cut the wires to length. What you're looking for is, as you cut back the sheathing, you want at least 6 inches past the cut sheathing and 3 inches past the edge of the box. Then we'll do that J-hook in our ground wire and tighten up the ground screw first, which is best practice. Then securing the silver screw terminal to the neutral white and the gold to the hot black wire. Breaking off the Mickey Mouse ears, this is something I always forgot about before, but doing that really helps to make sure that the outlet sits flush in an old work box. Then we'll just use the ratcheting action here of that Klein screwdriver to tighten everything up and get it in place. So now we'll bring everything together back at our original location. Now how I'm going to actually secure, we have a stud here, is by using one of these south wire boxes. These are relatively new. They have the mounting on the inside so you can access and secure from the inside. Now one thing I do is I switch out the fine thread drywall screws that come standard with these boxes, and I just upgrade those to some better GRK general construction screws of the same length. And then that's going to give me a T25 bit there. And with our same Klein Tools screwdriver, we're able to use those for our standard impact driver so you can get additional benefit from those bits. So then we fish the wires back through. I have the 2 coming from the top. And usually what you want to do is make sure the sheathing actually comes through the strain relief on these. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but we have the 2 original pieces and then we have our new one in place. So then you go ahead and push that back, and then once you get it to where you want it, you can drive those screws in. So usually I use my hybrid wire strippers to kind of hold that in place, and then once I like it, I go ahead and drive those screws home. Now I would prefer that the box is recessed slightly, not much, just slightly to the drywall, opposed to being proud and poke out from the drywall. That would make sure your face plates will sit flush and that they won't be poking out. So just check and see when you secure that the whole box itself is either flush with the drywall or it is slightly recessed. So now we'll go ahead and clean up the 2 existing pieces of Romex, getting new copper and then also straightening out that one ground wire that was all mangled and twisted up. Then we'll cut back the sheathing from the new piece of Romex, and what we want to do is bring these all together in 5-wire Wago 221 lever nuts. These are the best wire connectors for DIY electrical, and that's not just my opinion. Many viewers have said that over time. And then we're just going to use pigtails. So 1 piece of wire coming out of that Wago lever nut, and then we'll have 3 wires that we have to push back in the box, opposed to trying to bring all those wires into the outlet, which I do not recommend. So pigtail is the way to go here, starting off with a J-hook in the clockwise direction on your ground screw, then neutral, then your hot wire, and go ahead and tighten that in using the Mickey Mouse ears to actually catch the drywall on this box and get it in place. So everything's wired, power's back on. I'll use a little fancier RT250 to see if it's wired correctly, which it is, but also get a voltage reading. So we're in 119 at the old location, so let's check the new location. We also see correct and 119, so we're good to go. So we'll put our face plates back on. Just know if you do have a little drywall damage and you might have went with a standard faceplate before that didn't quite cover everything, you can upgrade to a little bit larger, and you can even get jumbo faceplates if you really need to cover up quite a bit. I would just get a bunch of those for the whole room, opposed to just changing one of them out, because it'll look a little weird if you have standard faceplates for one of your outlets in the room and then you have a jumbo for another. So just be consistent at least within the room and get everything lined up. So let me know if you guys have any questions on your own project. We have our old location back up and running, and our new location is good to go. If you want references to any of those tools we use, remember right below the video you'll see those. And I have one more ask, and that is, One of the biggest increases in our home costs has been homeowners insurance, especially depending on where you live. So we're trying to get viewer feedback and collect that all together to then pass value back to you in the form of a dashboard where you can filter down to your state and then see what is everybody else carrying for deductible, how much liability coverage do they have, and more importantly, how much do they pay monthly? So you can see, am I at the high end? Am I at the low end? Should I be shopping around? And then we'll also have some reviews on insurance companies. What are the most common insurance companies in your areas and how many stars do they have out of 5 stars? So it'll be extremely valuable information. But first we do need that initial round of information, and the dashboard will be up and running in a couple weeks. So thank you in advance for your help on that one. I think it is going to be a lot of value to the community going forward. Now, if you want to see similar projects and you do not have a basement or attic access, I have 2 of those for you. One, you can check out this video right here, pretty much the same project, but it'll show you a trick where you do not have to go down in the basement and you don't have to do any drywall or painting as well. And if you want to move your TV outlet location up the wall, you can check out this video right here and that'll walk you through the similar process. So thanks for joining me in this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next ones. Take care.